Of the Republican National Convention kicks off in a matter of hours. Today's theme is Make America Safe once again, with a focus on immigration and crime. And just to give you a little bit of context here, this is happening as the U.S. Customs and Border Control says arrests for illegally crossing the southern border are actually down 29% in June. That is the lowest of Joe Biden's presidency. Officials attribute the decline to President Biden's asylum crackdown. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump made his first public appearance last night since the attempt on his life, wearing a bandage over his ear that was grazed by a bullet. The former president officially secured the delegates to become his party's nominee.
On behalf of the 125 delegates in the unbelievable state of Florida, we hereby nominate every single one of them for the greatest president that's ever lived, and that's Donald J. Trump.
Trump's newly announced running mate, Ohio Senator JD Vance, also appeared last night. His nomination is a bit of a pivot for him. He famously once compared the former president to Hitler before becoming a staunch ally of former President Trump. Trump's son, Don Jr., spoke to our Ed O'Keefe about why the campaign feels Vance is the one for the job.
Explain to those watching why you think J.D. Vance is the best man to run with your father.
Listen, I think he's lived the epitome of the American dream story. I think he's the guy that's capable of bringing that same success that he was able to have, coming from nothing, coming from Appalachia, and succeeding at a level that no one could possibly fathom. If you've read Hillbilly Elegy, I think it's one of the great books. I read it like when it first came out, before he was even sort of on board with Trump or believed that Trump could be the guy that can do that. He's just been an incredible fighter ever since he saw that it was real.
Meanwhile, there's been a lot of talk about cooling down extreme political rhetoric since the attempted assassination of Trump. Trump has said that the shooting had a, quote, a lot of impact, and that he's reworking the speech that he intends to deliver at the convention Thursday night to make it more unifying. Well, CBS News campaign reporter Olivia Rinaldi is joining us now with more on all things RNC from Milwaukee. Thanks for joining us. What was it like when Trump walked in that room? He typically, he was not expected until at least Thursday.
Yeah, Anne-Marie, it was an extremely emotional event last night when Donald Trump entered that arena. I'll never forget on Saturday, as he was leaving the stage after being shot, he threw his fist up in the air, and some of the campaign officials I talked to told me the reason why he did that was to let his supporters know, I'm okay, we're going to be all right, as he was leaving the stage. So for him to return last night, you could see him get kind of emotional, a little bit choked up there. It was an extremely raw moment being in the arena. People started cheering so loudly for him as he made his way through, and you could see his children sitting behind him. He, of course, was sitting next to Senator Vance, who was his vice presidential pick, and it was a very raw moment for the former president. I think it made it all very real for him.
Let us talk about the VP pick, Senator JD Vance. He's young. He hasn't been a senator for very long. People probably know him better for his book, Hillbilly Elegy. How does he fit into the Trump agenda and the Republican agenda?
So it's very interesting about JD Vance, and I heard you talking about his previous opinions of how he called Trump Hitler, how he likened some of his views. He called him noxious at one point. But Donald Trump loves nothing more than a convert. He likes someone that he can change. And JD Vance, even about those views, said, look, this was before he was even president. He was a great president, and then I changed my opinion. Since then, JD Vance has been Trump's best friend of the MAGA movement. He has been in lockstep with Donald Trump. And in a lot of ways, he's been kind of seen as the heir apparent to the MAGA movement with this pick. Yeah, I was in New Hampshire with JD Vance when he was campaigning with Donald Trump, and we were at a tiny Trump campaign headquarters there, and the room was packed to the brim with people who were in there and just wanting to get a glimpse of the senator, even bringing his book, Hillbilly Elegy. That book's been out for about 8 years now, maybe longer. I have to double check, but people are bringing the book for him to sign. I mean, he really has struck a nerve with the MAGA group of people who like his views. They particularly appreciate his views on Ukraine and how he has said that he wants to see an end to that conflict by any means. and he would like Republicans to not be the party of foreign wars. That's something he's been very keen on, and that's something that him and Trump have talked about before. So with those views, he's really kind of charting his own course with the MAGA movement.
And then before we let you go, got to ask you about the theme, Make America Safe Once Again. And former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley will be speaking. As you know, she was perhaps his closest challenger throughout the primary. What does this say about the fact that she's on the stage tonight? And you know, it's a bit of a turnaround.
Yeah, you know, on Saturday before the events happened in Butler, we were hearing chatter that perhaps they might be reaching out to Nikki Haley, and this is part of a unity messaging. Even after those events, it became more clear they need to have a cohesive Republican Party that is unified around Donald Trump, especially after that assassination attempt. That became even more clear that that's what they need. So she accepted the role. She will be here. As you mentioned, she was Trump's last foe in the Republican primary and had some choice words about him being the next commander-in-chief if he were to win again. It's quite the pivot from Haley, and I'll be interested to see what she has to say.
All right, Olivia, thank you. A reminder to everyone, we have complete coverage of the Republican National Convention all week long. A special coverage begins on America Decides tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern.